move on to some subjects or so. Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that Archery Gear Fusion just shut down yesterday. Yeah, yeah. It was a good game. It was a good game. I'd say it was a very good game. And you know the problem is calling it an Epic 7 killer is probably the most stupid thing you would ever say, to be honest. That's probably like one of the biggest things. You never want to call a video game, oh, they're the killers of so and so video game, you know, insert video game name here, you know. Remember when they're calling games or so the Call of Duty killer or something like that, you know? It's just kind of like it's pretty stupid, you know.
Some guy named Andy
Like,
Cortez.
hold on before we jump into it or so, because the only reason why is that you can't kill a franchise because it's already massive. The only way for it to, you know, for it to fucking, you know, to kill it, right? It's itself. The only franchise that can kill Call of Duty is itself. It's the same thing with Epic 7. The only way that Epic 7 will die is itself, you know, and that's pretty much it. People who have a mentality or so that this game is going to be the quote unquote killer or so needs to stop thinking like that, because that's pretty much a dead sign or so that the game will die itself. So
Recently made a hilarious and bizarre rant about people who criticize DI policies, in particular YouTubers and gamers. We're going to take a look at that, but
what? Who? Wait, what? Who does this? Wait, who does this?
first, who even is this guy? Well, when I looked him up, I found a Rooster Teeth fandom article that says Andy Cortez was formerly an employee of Rooster Teeth who currently works at Kinda Funny.
So Andy Cortez was formerly an employee of Rooster Teeth. Formerly, that means, you know, he got fired. Who currently works at Kinda Funny. I don't even know what that is, to be honest. I guess he's kind of funny, I guess, but he's not really funny though. He was a level designer and 3D artist for Rooster Teeth games, having worked on Grim Eclipse. He left Rooster Teeth in March 2017 to work at Kinda Funny. I see. The community always hypes a game and setting themselves up for disappointment. Yeah, that's the problem.
He was a level designer and 3D artist for Rooster Teeth games, having worked on Grim Eclipse. He left Rooster Teeth in March 2017 to work at Kinda Funny. Yeah, the thing is, I have no idea what their business Kinda Funny is either, so
I don't even know what that is.
Next. They've also got...
What is it just a bunch of people who are just like kind of funny, but they're not really funny? They're kind of cringe.
An article over on roosterteeth.fandom.com, which gives a variety of information, including that Kinda Funny has 2 YouTube channels. So going over to YouTube and typing in, which gives a variety.
So Kinda Funny is an online American personality-based entertainment media production company that produces videos on video game culture, film, television, and comics, focused on creating content for their growing audience on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Patreon, led by the nerd culture poster boys Greg Miller, Colin Moriarty, Nick Caprino, I don't know, and Tim Geddes. Kinda Funny creates daily content centered around video games, movies, TVs, comics, and occasionally sports, mostly hockey. Kinda Funny creates contents on 2 YouTube channels. Primary Kinda Funny channel features primarily comedy videos such as Kinda Funny and the animated series, as well as Kinda Funny's flagship podcast, The Game Over Greggy Show. While Kinda Funny Games is the company, while the company's video game arm focuses on Let's Plays and the weekly podcast, the Kinda Funny Gamecast since June 19, 2017, the Kinda Funny Games arm of the company has produced a live daily video games news podcast for YouTube and the streaming website Twitch under the name Kinda Funny Games Daily.
Variety of information, including that Kinda Funny has
Jesus
2
Christ.
YouTube channels.
What a pain in the ass to fucking read that, to be honest.
So going over
Jesus.
to YouTube and typing in Kinda Funny, I met with Kinda Funny Games. Taking a look at some of their recent videos, we can see The Penguin, Batman in Review, Agatha All Along, MCU in Review, and Please Vote for Kamala Harris, Kinda Funny Podcast. So
Oh God, are you serious? Please vote for Kamala Harris. Kinda Funny podcast. I see.
So there you go. There's some context.
I see.
Now let's check out this Andy Cortez person's rant.
You need DEI because you wouldn't have jobs if DEI didn't exist to complain about. You wouldn't be making money on YouTube if DEI didn't exist. So you're
Excuse me? What are you talking about?
We're really the ones that need it.
Okay, so let's pause there. I don't know if he's talking about any specific person, but for a lot of us who criticize DI policies, that's really not the case. For example, it's really fitting that this guy used to be associated with Rooster Teeth, because I've made dozens of videos talking about corruption that's occurred at Rooster Teeth, their bad business practices, how they've ruined Ruby, things like that, etc, etc. I also criticize corruption over at companies like Funimation and Crunchyroll, and it just so happens now that a lot of corporations in the anime and gaming space have adopted DI policies that are harming the products that they work on and shovel onto us, in which I now find it fitting to talk about those policies and criticize them, just like I've always criticized corporations. On top of that, I've also just made a ton of videos on just like fandom stuff going on too, so like the fact of the matter is, if all these corporations wiped out their DI policies tomorrow, my channel would be fine, dude, be chilling. There's plenty of stuff to talk about.
Unless your game has only white dudes, if you have a woman, she better be fun hot.
Yeah.
You know, get an ugly woman out of my game. That lady better be super smoking hot.
Yep.
That's the way they think, right?
So this is a part of a larger issue that he's really talking about with no nuance here. For example, baked into this issue is situations where we've seen characters like E from Stellar Blade, which then end up getting criticized from these gaming journalists and like armchair activist types of people, saying it's objectifying women and it's problematic, etc, etc. To which
It's so weird. It's so weird that they're saying that specifically, even though it's based off an actual real model of an actual real person in Korea or so. It's kind of funny that like the Asian, just the Asian side territory of like all of them in general, they take care of themselves a lot more when it comes to body and like, skincare routine and all this other shit compared to like the West side, compared to the West side, which they don't really like, a lot of them don't really care about their body and they let their body go or so, and then, well, Lord and behold, they just start getting upset or so, that model is a unicorn. I'm like, there's a good majority of like Asian people or so that take care of themselves, like even I'm trying to take care of myself at the end of the day.
which understandably gamers will then push back against those claims, including, by the way, plenty of women pushing back against those claims. Then there's also an issue of double standards, because oftentimes you see someone who says like a female character is too sexualized, and then you take a look at their profile or whatever, and they're like heavily sexualizing male characters. For some reason, that's a pretty frequent occurrence.
It's always so stupid. Like I always sexualize male characters and I always sexualize female characters. I do both, perfectly balanced, because I like both of them at the end of the day,
There's also plenty of other issues in this topic as well. For example, recently with Dragon Age the Veilguard, where character
Granted, sometimes for me, sometimes a little bit too much girls or so can be a little bit too much for me sometimes. So that's why I always try to like, I always take a certain amount of dosage of like how much girl like, etchy and like lewdness and stuff I can handle or so. I do have a limit, I do have a limit. After a certain point, I get kind of sick and tired of it after a while, because I need a good balance of hot dudes and girls. So then I'd be like, yeah,
customization options were extremely limited for female characters, absurdly minimal.
But unfortunately, like most guys or so, sorry for pausing or so. But like the problem is like certain male characters don't really tickle my fancy. They always try to go for the bad boys or so. I guess if you're young or so, I guess like the bad boys is your type of taste. That's fine. Me personally, I think that's pretty a shit taste in my personal opinion. But I prefer a fine gentleman, to be honest. I prefer a mature, fine gentleman, like my personal opinion, who wears like a suit or so, like Nouvelette and Zhong Li or so. Those are my kind of taste of men, so.
Minimal sliders, to which, once again, many women also criticized the lack of options there, lack of customization. So no, it's not just white dudes or dudes, whatever the heck this guy was saying, who criticized this stuff. Doesn't really seem to understand what he's talking about, although to be fair to him, I haven't seen the full clip. Maybe he does bring this up too, but from what I just saw, yeah, not really accurate.
Back in the day, game development studios were primarily white dudes, and they didn't really think about diversity. And that's one thing, right? It was a lot rarer to find.
Wasn't there like different types of characters or so in video games in the old days? Fucking didn't like Gears of War had a didn't they had some fucking Mexican dude or something like that? Like, cause they had a Mexican name or so for one of the characters. I don't know. I've never played Gears of War. Remember the early 2000s? We got nothing but emo male leads. I do remember that. Like, wasn't there like a few characters that had like that were not just white or so. Like I remember this correctly, right? I remember a few games. Not a whole lot, but I remember a few games though. And they were still pretty great too as well.
Find non-white dudes in game development. And as that changes, and as college and learning and all that stuff kind of becomes more ubiquitous and more available for everybody, more and more people from different walks,
quote unquote available for everybody. Let me just put that in quotations. Quote unquote available for everybody. Yeah, everybody has money or so to spend money on college or so for them to study these things. Yes. Everybody has it. Quotation marks. Everybody does, okay? Everybody has it, chat. Everybody can fucking do it. Quotation marks.
walks of life want to get into game development.
Yeah.
And then what happens then?
They're making the characters the people that they know, the things that they see.
And it's
just like the white people did.
just like you put yourself into stories, right?
Yeah.
And I talked about that with Dragon Age Veilguard, how the game director, Corinne Bush, she's a trans woman. And sometimes in games, you just put in your own sort of experiences. And that's so natural to
Did I put in any of my stories that I've created? Did I put myself in any of these stories? No. No. I did not put any ounce of myself in any of my stories. There is not a shred of 1% of piece of me in any of the stories that I've created. I did not put myself in any of these fucking stories. That makes no fucking sense to put yourself in a story. Okay? You're writing a fantasy story in a medieval fantasy age, and you have to have these specific characters fitting this specific timeline in a fantasy fucking medieval dragons and fucking demons and gods and demigods and shit and elves and fucking whatever the fuck you're gonna put in there, you know? I don't put myself in the fucking story, okay? I don't. That makes no fucking sense. That's not how we learned to make stories, okay? We learn to make stories to create a new character based off the setting itself. Jesus fucking Christ.
to happen.
That's what art is.
It's nothing that's supposed to offend anybody. It's supposed to be, hey, walk around and look around.
No wonder certain stories for certain video games have been so bad is because they've been self-inserting themselves into these stories. Like, it's fine to put some, but create a new character for it at least. You know, there's been some characters that have been done very well or so for certain these things. But a lot of the other video games have been done so fucking poorly because they self-insert themselves too much. Way too much. There's been some that have been done very well. But the problem is, you know, these other ones have done it way too far off the deep end. You need to pull that shit back or so, because at the end of the day, no one cares about it, you know? Like I'm gonna be personally honest with you. Like, I'm even playing fucking Dragon Age or so, and I'm just kind of like, ugh. It's just like, fuck, man. It's just like, fuck, dude. You know the worst of it? U.S. comic scenes has had some very bad self-insert. Like, if I'm gonna self-insert myself, you know how I'm going to do? You know how I'm gonna self-insert myself? I'm gonna put a fucking... I would fantasize as a badass fucking commander evil woman or so who is a fucking dommy mommy who literally has a, like, you know, who literally has a fucking whip or so for a weapon or so. And I will fucking tease my fucking enemies or so and then kill them off, you know, in the most brutal way possible. You know, that's how I would self-insert myself. If I was gonna self-insert myself, I'm gonna go to the balls to the walls with my fantasy or so and make myself the fucking sexiest badass woman you'll ever see, you know? Like, that's what I'll literally do. That's literally what I'll fucking do. If I self-insert myself in a fucking so-as death, pretty much, yeah, but a little bit more better, though.
The world has everybody your game's having it shouldn't stop you from playing it.
Yeah, so once again, this guy seems to really not understand the topic that he's speaking with so much conviction.
In one of the comics of Deadpool, a female writer self-inserted herself as Deadpool's lover. Okay, at that point, you're just making a fanfic at that point.
On. Does he really not understand how there are factually things like DI policies at a lot of these major gaming corporations?
Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I think what I enjoy most is being an evil badass, you know, or an anti-hero, you know, anti-hero or a badass, you know, evil badass, you know. That's how I see myself mostly.
Corporations nowadays in AAA space, and how they will intentionally and disingenuously put these characters in there. It's not just because like, oh, there's a variety of diverse people working on these games, it's just occurring naturally. No, as a matter of fact, it's very not natural. It's very much corporate jargon, which is the issue that most of us take. I actually talked about this yesterday too.
Like, you need to know the difference between like doing a fanfic story and actually writing a story, you know.
Most gamers who talk about this stuff don't have an issue with a vast array of characters in their media. The issue is, as I just said, corporations disingenuously putting these characters in there.
Because if I would self-insert myself, that's what I would do, right? I would do myself that, and I'll even voice the character for it. And then I would do the voice that I would usually do, which is it's like, yes, as you can see, quite indeed that you've come to my domain. Now then, why don't you show me what you got? That's basically is what I would do, you know. Like I would voice my own character if I would self-insert, you know, but I would do a villain-esque character, you know, because that's what I love to do. Like, I think it's pretty cool. I think villain characters are fucking cool, personally, you know.
There, and then oftentimes they write the diverse characters extremely poorly too, so the representation or whatever ends up not even being good. And I'm glad he also brought up Veilguard, because that's a perfect example, one that I have been using a lot lately, understandably, because the game just came out. But the LGBT representation in that game has been awful.
We get free
Gosh,
content,
man, that
boys.
character's written so
it's gonna be on the YouTube channel anyways.
Poorly. It comes off so fake, so forced, so disingenuous, so clunky. And then they also made Tosh a complete hypocrite, who so many people don't even like. Maybe even the majority of people who play that game don't like Tosh. I see posts all the time about how people dislike that character and wish they could remove Tosh from their party, and or have
I haven't even encountered Tosh yet.
the character should be named trash, stuff like that. It's all over the place. Let me know what you guys think about Andy Cortez's rant, if you agree or disagree with him. Let me
I disagree 100% on his rant. He literally makes no sense or so.
know in the comments. And now, moving on. Speaking of Veilguard, lots of people in the gaming community are criticizing IGN for this tweet that they made earlier today that reads, Dragon Age the Veilguard is awkwardly in conflict with itself, torn into pieces that reflect a sequel to a decade-old RPG and a fresh beginning with no ties to what came before. An example of the criticism they're getting for this is Pirate Nation, who tweets, IGN has changed its mind about Veilguard. After giving a 9 out of 10 to trick people to buy the game, now after 2 weeks the game is a failure, not even 1 million units sold, players are nervous and ask for a return of the game. IGN is trying to get away with it, and posts a review that should have been from the beginning. And
I think it should be a 6. A 7 is way too lenient. But for a Dragon Age fan, it should be a 4. If you're a Dragon Age fan, this should be at least a 4 or a 3. For people who haven't played the old Dragon Age fan, it should be at least like a 6, maybe a 5. So.
And yeah, in their Veilguard review, they gave it a 9 out of 10. In the responses to Pirate Nation's tweet, though, someone would defend IGN, saying it's 2 different writers, and this isn't a review, it's an opinion piece. Sure, you could say that, and there might even be some merit to it. However, I don't have enough confidence in IGN to not believe that there could be an ulterior motive here. I would not be surprised at all if they initially did attempt to prop this game up, giving it a 9 out of 10. And now that the game isn't doing as well as they and other gaming journalists had hoped, despite their attempts to, once again, prop the game up, they're trying to, like, circle it back a little bit at least. Now, moving back to IGN's tweet, the one that Pirate Nation had responded to, we've got another response here, this one from Legacy Killer HD, who says, I get they have different writers, blah, blah, blah.
Put my life uninstall the game when she beats Tosh.
But still funny seeing IGN give
Who knows?
a,
Maybe.
quote, 9 out of 10,
Maybe.
best game ever acclaim, unquote.
I'm trying to hold tight with. I'm trying to give this game a chance. I'm giving this game a chance. But holy shit, so far the boss fights have been dog shit. That's all I gotta say, man.
and then posting this 2 weeks later, trashing all over the game, and bringing up points a lot of us have been saying. Some responses to Legacy being IGN should use a team of 3 or 5 to every review, average out of the scores, have real criteria for why the score is what it is, like EGM used to have. There was no rational excuse to give the game a 9. Even if you love it, at best, it's a 7 out of 10. And so IGN's finally catching up to what
I don't even think it deserves a 7 out of 10, to be honest. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I don't even give it a 7 out of 10. If you're a Dragon Age fan, right? This is if you played the older Dragon Age games, right? And you decided to play this game, it's a 3 or a 4. Maybe a 2, you know? And like for people who have not played the older Dragon Age games whatsoever, it's probably like a 5 or a 6, you know? That's about it, you know?
actual gamers noticed weeks ago, as well as they gave this game a 9 out of 10, yet Mario and Luigi Brothership a 5 out of 10. I've been playing Brothership like crazy, and I'd say it's more of an 8 out of 10. Conversely, here's another defense tweet. Lavenza saying, society if people stop treating gaming outlets as a hive mind. Here's a tweet defending the initial IGN review that gave it a 9 out of 10. Zafina, soulless wife, says, how about no? IGN, please come on now. As someone who has waited a decade for this game, I'm so thrilled and overjoyed with it. There's some quality of life odd change, but this is what I wanted and shows a promising momentum for the series. It's also the only game like itself. And one more critical tweet, saying IGN gave Stellar Blade a 7 and Wukong an 8 out of spite. Then they gave Dragon Age a 7 for agenda reasons, and now that things are not looking good, they're backing off. Gaming journalists are not only dishonest, they're cowards too. So let me know what you guys think.
Like, I don't review games, but I can tell automatically what this game is automatically because the 2 boss fights have been so boring. I literally glitched out the ogre just moving left and right in the fucking pillar, and the ogre couldn't do anything. The second boss that we fought or so, that skinny little dude that fucking tunnels into the ground or so, like the most minuscule depleted health or so, he goes burrowing into the ground and then resets himself every single time. And it's just like, I get it. I get that specific mechanic, but other games have done it better when it's like 3 times, when it does it only 3 times or 4 times, and that's pretty much it. But that motherfucker kept doing it at least more than 10 times, and it was so irritating after a while.
Do you think IGN is completely innocent here, or do you think like maybe they have an ulterior motive, so to speak, or what? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, as well as, of course, thoughts on the initial topic as well with that Andy Cortez person.
Yeah, so for me specifically for Veilguard, where I stand it at, where would I put Veilguard from 0 to 10? 0 means it's unplayable. You can't play it. It's hot dog shit garbage. It breaks every time you try to play it. And 10 is like a god tier game that is like the best of the best. Story, OST, combat, gameplay, everything. I would put Dragon Age Veilguard a 4 out of 10. That's where I would put Dragon Age Veilguard. It's a 4 out of 10. So far, at least so far from my playthrough so far, it is, even the choices of being sarcastic and being like the comedic choice or so, Metaphor does it better than Dragon Age Veilguard. Because when I chose the sarcastic answers or so in Honkai Star Rail, in Metaphor, like there is funny dialogue for it. But then when I did it in Dragon Age, there was no funniness. There was no funny dialogue. And it didn't even make me laugh or so. It made me question, like where the fuck is the funny? Where is the funniness? There's no funniness whatsoever. So that's why it's just kind of like it makes no sense. Even in the Yakuza games, when you choose the funny option or so, I fucking start laughing or so because there's actual funniness in a nerd voice. But Ko, you haven't beaten the game yet. I don't know, man. I don't even know if I'm gonna beat this game, but I'm gonna try to beat this game. Jesus Christ! I do need to upload the VOD or so up to the main channel though. I do need to upload those VODs specifically, but Yeah, so far, I ain't liking it so far, to be honest. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I'm not liking what I'm seeing so far, but yeah. Anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. You guys can let me know specifically what you guys think if anyone has been playing Dragon Age. I've been suffering through Dragon Age. You can catch me live or so on twitch.tv, you know, /Nyaru. Yes, I think I'm doing this correctly. I'm not sure. I don't even know at the end of the day. I'm not a professional fucking content creator, so. But yeah, anyways. What a game. I give it a 4 out of 10. The last Bioware game where you can be an asshole is OG Mass Effect. Yeah, of course. Anyways, that's the end of the video. And